So I wanted to make a song using only things available on the Earthbound sound font, and here's how I did it. First of all, if you don't know what a sound font is, it's basically like a collection of sound files put together in a file that are able to be used easily with MIDI. The composers of Earthbound are incredibly talented people, and it shows. Many different artists take inspiration from them. One, namely, is Toby Fox. You may or may not have heard of him. He's pretty popular. He made Undertale, and his OST in that game is chock full of sound fonts from Earthbound. And if you're paying attention, you'll likely hear similarities between the scores. To get started, my current project looks like this because I decided to record this shortly after working on the project. But to give you an idea, here's what I started with, or what I came up with after I started recording. I started with a few different sounds from the sound font. Sine 1 is being used as a low bass. It's literally just a sine wave from the sound font. And I set up an EQ with a low pass to cut out any high frequencies. Mellow piano is being used to create the ARP, which later turns into a waltz type of pattern. I literally didn't mix mellow piano at all. I just think it sounds really nice already. This one is called Onet? Onet? I'm not sure how to say it, but it has a very nice calming noise to it. I am using it for some basic chords. I set a lo-fi effector on it, as well as an EQ that I sort of just randomly played with until it sounded okay, but it's basically a bandpass, cutting all low and high frequencies. These are the main instruments that I'll be using for this piece. I also use drums straight from the sound font, but just for a placeholder, I am using the Groover drum loop, which is just one of the basic drum loops that comes with FL. More on that later with the drums. By the way, all of the plugins I am using in this video are default with the producer version of FL Studio, so I'm not using any other third-party plugins. I'm just using the sound fonts and tweaking the sounds using some FL Studio built-in plugins. So as I said before, unfortunately I don't have any footage from when I made the chords and the ARP, but it's just some pretty basic chords, and I am pretty much just a monkey at a keyboard pressing buttons when it comes to the ARP, until I hear something I like. Whoa, dude, it's literally me, dude. If it helps, I am using the key of C# major for this song. Here is me developing the bass notes. I wanted to use some sliding notes here. I don't want to glaze FL too much, but I really do like the slidey notes. They make it sound really good, even from third-party sound fonts. I tried to go pretty deep here with the bass, but it just didn't work out so well, and I wondered why, so I just Googled it. Apparently you want to keep bass notes within the frequency range of around 60 to 250 hertz. You can use an EQ in FL Studios to tell where your frequencies are at, like this. I added this camera sound effect. I thought it might be a cool sound to add between key bar transfers or whatever they're called. I put some reverb and delay on it to give it some oomph. I then quick rendered the pattern as an audio clip to make it a bit more precise on where I want the sound to start and end. That'll work. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's this other instrument I'm using. I was searching around the sound font a little bit. What the f*** is this? And I landed on one of the sounds called Unsettling Opponent. It sounds like this. I gave it some wet reverb and a band pass. I also panned it to the left a bit. Here's me developing the melody. Time to ditch this basic loop. No offense, image line. The loop is a banger, but it's gotta go. I grabbed a kick, a hi-hat, an open hat, and a snare from the Earthbound sound font and gave it some compression. I just used image line's fruity compressor and used the drum preset. A little bit of volume mixing, and here are the drums. Oh yeah, I also used some strings. It's called Strings 1 in the sound font. I gave it some reverb and a filter to make it sound more like a pad than actual strings. Made just some pretty basic chords to make this piece sound more ethereal. Is that the right word? I don't know, maybe. So that is pretty much the beginning of the track done. I wanted to spice things up and switch the time signature, and to do a bit of waltz on a 3/4 time sig, like so. I made a pretty simple waltz, still within the same key of C sharp major, but then I wanted to make it even more weirder and go from a 3/4 to a 5/4 to give it a 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and pattern. It may seem like I'm trying to quirk things up and give it a quirky time signature, which honestly, that's maybe what I'm doing, but I kind of liked it, and I haven't really worked in a 5/4 time signature very often, but again, I'm really just pressing keys on a keyboard until I like what I hear. For some reason, I was reminded of Toby Fox's Here We Are song, which is also in a 5/4 time signature, and I just like the way it sounds. With the time signature being changed, I also had to make a new drum loop, new pads, new melody, and new chords. And that's pretty much wraps for this piece. I didn't know what to put at the end, so I just pulled a classic every single 80s song type of ending and had the volume just fade down to 0. I added my producer tag, and we are done. And here is the finished piece.